Yo, what up? It's Luther, and today I want to talk with you about one of the core principles that will make or break your ability to achieve your goals, regardless if it's in financial or personal areas of your life. I remember there were the beginning stages of me going to the gym, and because I didn't apply this principle properly, I made this simple challenge of waking up on time and applying myself in the weight room much more harder than it had to be. You take a challenge that is, let's say it is a level 50 challenge, and because you're stacking the cards against yourself, you turn this level 50 challenge into a level 100 challenge. And the principle and concept that I want to talk with you about is the principle of momentum. There are two types of momentum. There is small play momentum, and then there is big play momentum. And any big play momentum always starts with the small things. Momentum lays in the small things and builds into those big plays. But usually we stack the cards against ourselves. And this is why so many of us live a life where contradictorily we live where work is difficult. It tires us out. It doesn't rejuvenate us. It doesn't matter what you're going after. If you have a big picture goal of what you're wanting to achieve and you're moving towards this goal, even if it is a monotonous work task that you have to do on a day-to-day basis, if you are achieving things towards that goal, it rejuvenates you. It gives you that energy. But the problem is without the concept of momentum, you're not getting that rejuvenation happening inside of you. And therefore, work becomes this difficult grind of one day after another, just living from day to day. You're living with a soulless energy to you. And because you're not using this principle of momentum, you're living in a life of low charge. And we talked about in the last video where low charge, you're not able to animate your body to do the things that you said you were going to do, whether that's waking up on time, whether that is going after a certain career, even if you're not 100% ready for that career, but taking the actions forward, taking a certain amount of risk onto yourself. You can't do that. Consciously, you want to, but physically, it's like there is a blockage in front of you. And a lot of that lays in low charge and no momentum living. And this is why it will feel like living life is moving up a stream. But when you start to ride that golden wave, it is like you are going with the stream. You're going with the river. They always say they never go with the river. That's only how dead fish go. But what if the pot of gold was at the end, the bottom of the river? And if you could just activate the right principles, you could flow with that river. You could stop having to struggle. You could get into a bout of momentum. The biggest thing that momentum stops in anyone, and one of the greatest factors that is afforded to us as humans, is our ability to be creative. The difference between what AI is going to be doing soon, taking over the regular 9 to 5 jobs, and the creator is our ability to problem solve, to come up with creative ways of figuring out how to fix something that isn't working properly, how to take two ideas and mold them together to create something new, to be an artist. This doesn't mean you need to be someone that is singing or drawing. If you are a business owner, if you are a parent, these are both different fields, but they both require levels of creativity for you to take concepts and mold them together to try out new things. But when you're not in a bout of momentum, when you're trying to push yourself up that stream, living in a life full of anxiety, creativity isn't accessible to you because you're living in flight or fight. When we live in this stressful situation, our minds naturally turn off our creative abilities. The intuition that usually is there when we're quiet is no longer able to be there because our brain is being filled with these stress responses from very simple things. And it doesn't have much to do with the outside circumstance. It has a lot to do with how the inside of our brains are working. Because one person can deal with these circumstances much easier and still have that creativity accessible to them, while another person will be drowning in anxiety from a simple misstep in their day, all because of the different principles that they're applying in their day. And it starts from the beginning of your day. The reason that going to the gym and staying consistent with the gym was so difficult for me, so much more difficult than it had to be, is because I had the cards stacked against myself. Unconsciously, I had a bunch of distractions and obstacles in front of my way that stopped me from taking those steps forward. And on the other side of this, it seems so obvious. Like if you just changed the way you think about the gym, you just changed the way your mind works towards the gym, of course, this challenge would stop being so difficult. Something as simple as waiting until you have the right amount of protein inside of your diet, waiting for the proper diet before you go to the gym. When you say forget needing this perfect diet, forget needing the perfect plan, the goal is just to get into the gym. Immediately that switches where your mind is. And by adding and stacking on days of going to the gym, you're building momentum. You're also stacking confidence in your ability to stick to your word. It's to stick and trust what you're going to say. Because if you say you're going to go to the gym, but you don't have that trust, what begins to happen is your mind is flooded with these barrage of negative thoughts. And that is where the difficulty lies. It doesn't lie in the task itself. Going to the gym or starting the business, starting a new job where you don't have a lot of expertise in, that isn't the difficult part. The difficult part lays in how we talk to ourselves, the thoughts that appear. Taking the action is as simple as that, taking the action, but it's the thoughts that start to appear in our mind. And the negative thoughts appear because we many times lack the confidence to trust our own word. We say that we're going to take that step forward, but at the back of our mind, we don't believe it. There is that, I don't think you can do that, because last time and the time before that, we didn't take those steps forward. So you have to break that cycle. And it is that beginning stage when you don't have momentum, when it is the most difficult. It is getting that boulder moving that takes the most amount of conscious effort and physical willpower to get the ball rolling. But once you are in that momentum stage, once you have the goal, once you're riding the golden wave, that is when you start to give everything you have, because now reality favors you because you played with the cards in your corner. You stacked everything up in your benefit. This doesn't happen just by a flip of a switch. It is how you're going to set up your night before you wake up, how you wake up. What is the first thing you do when you wake up? What are the rituals and habits that you stick to on a consistent basis? How are you proving to yourself that you can trust your own word? That is the most powerful thing. If you can trust that when you say something, you're going to go do it. And it's not like, okay, I'm going to go make $1 million and then you make the $1 million. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, if you say these next 5 hours are for deep focused work, and then you're able to complete those 5 hours of deep focused work without getting distracted, that is the type of trust in your own word that you need to have. Because if you can trust yourself that I know when I say 5 hours of work time is going to be 5 hours of work time, you can apply that to any field of life, all because you now trust yourself to be able to apply yourself in that field. You're not going to be able to make any shifts in your life if you don't trust yourself to be able to make those shifts. And you build that trust in yourself through small acts repeated. Something as simple as drinking a glass of water. You biohack your life with some extra water and you stay consistent with it. It starts in those small, meaningless seeming things where you start to drink 5 glasses of water, right? And every day for a week, you stay consistent with it. It's such a small act like that where you prove to yourself that you can listen to your own word. And now you make the next challenge a little bit harder. You have that one in the bag. That's like a badge that you can forever hold that, yes, I was able to listen to myself. I deliberately set out a task and I fulfilled it. Now we're going to make the task slightly bigger. And you see how that eventually starts to build. And when you stack them close to each other, this is where momentum starts to build. You lose that momentum if you do this for 1 week and you take a month off, or you do 1 day good and then you take 3 days off. You never build that momentum. And that is when that level 50 challenge turns into a level 150, and is why these challenges seem so much more difficult than they actually have to be. That's why people that don't have so much knowledge in certain areas are able to accomplish so much, simply because they just took action after action. They didn't have to worry about gathering more information. It's that gathering stage that is in between the action stages that stops us from gaining that momentum. And the momentum is everything. Momentum and personal charge. When you have a high charge, you're able to animate your body to do the things that you said you were going to do. And these things give you energy because you're in that bout of momentum. After success, everything becomes much more easier to you. And when you get into that stage of momentum, you have to double down, because many people start to coast when they've reached that peak. Right when they start to ride the wave, they say, okay, I'll take my hands off the steering wheel, the wave to crash now. But you lose so much, because eventually, no matter what you do, that wave will crash. And it is the beginning stages of trying to get that wave going again that is going to take all of that energy and that mental effort. But if you push down, you put your head down, you double down when you're riding that wave, you can juice out so much progress from when you reach that peak. And at the end of you riding that golden wave, you can look back at it and see, I was able to stick with what I said I was going to do, and it wasn't as hard as I first thought it was going to be. And this proves to yourself that next time when I have to start up that golden wave, it won't be as big of a challenge because I proved to myself I can do it. But if you take your hands off the steering wheel right when you get to the peak of the golden wave and it crashes so soon, when you're on the end of that golden wave and you look back and see, I didn't accomplish as much as I thought I could accomplish. And I did try to hit the golden wave with lots of momentum. But you're seeing a lie of what the golden wave really is, what momentum really can be, because you didn't double down in the time where you had to double down. And now you need extra energy. Why? Because the negative thoughts are there again. It is those thoughts of, well, I did apply myself, and yet look at how much progress I got. It wasn't what I expected. I'm not creating this life of abundance. The goal that I went after didn't afford me the things that I wanted, but that's simply because the application of applying the rule of momentum was only half-assed. You have to apply it 100%, and that means a lot of mental effort in the beginning and a lot of mental effort in sticking with the bar that you've set for yourself in the middle zone and riding it until you can't ride it anymore. So that when the next time comes where you need to start building that momentum again, you can look back on your previous success and say, okay, I've already gone through this process before. I know what this looks like. I have the confidence in my ability to execute once again. I have the trust in my own word. And now those negative thoughts are no longer there. That is the difference between someone who gets stuck in something simple like changing their body and the person who is able to create so much success in their life, and doing something like changing their body comes second nature to them because they use the principle of momentum. Now, if you feel like you're not able to get your body to move, like when you say something and you don't have that trust yet, you have to build up to a state of high charge. Right now, if you're in low charge, click on this video over here and I will walk you through how to go from a low charge state to a high charge state. I'll see you guys in the next one.